Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Will. We all love a good movie that's based on our favorite books. From the eternally beloved Lord of the Rings trilogy to the surprising hit of the Dune series. And in this video, we're gonna look over 6 upcoming movies that are based on our favorite sci-fi novels. Let's get to it.
I love lists like this, I really do, because this is where imagination goes a little off the rails, and Hollywood decides to test its luck. A sci-fi novel can do whatever it wants. It can jump across timelines, drop us into bizarre alien worlds, trap us inside political messes, or ask questions so big that most movies would rather avoid them. Books get away with everything. Movies, not so much. And still, here we are. Because the bigger and more ridiculous the idea sounds, the more I get hooked. I want to see if a director actually pulls it off, or if the whole thing falls apart halfway through. Because, between you and me, we know half the fun is that risk. Is this going to be amazing? Or a very expensive, what were they even thinking? And right now, the lineup is kinda insane and ambitious, if you ask me. It could either go very right or very, very wrong. And I am completely in. Dune, Part 3, 2026. Out of everything on this list, I gotta give Dune its due here. For years, people treated it like this untouchable, impossible book that no one could properly bring to the big screen. And safe to say, it didn't just work. It worked better than a lot of franchises that were way easier to adapt. And now Denis Villeneuve is ready to close out his desert trilogy based on Frank Herbert's Dune Messiah. And this is where the story stops being nice about things. Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, is no longer that desert kid trying to survive anymore. Our guy is Emperor now, which sounds great until you remember he also has to hold power across the entire universe, keep Arrakis stable, and protect the spice supply that keeps civilization from falling on its face. The spice must flow. Easy week for Paul, right? And on top of that, that whole decision to marry Princess Irulan at the end of Part 2 is bound to come back around. And that is before we even get to the likely time jump. Also, if they follow the book, there's a big time jump coming, like 12 years. So a lot can change. People grow, relationships change, power rots, and the tone gets a lot less heroic and a lot more uncomfortable. Empire, prophecy, worship, all that grand, shiny stuff from the first 2 films, this one starts to pick it apart piece by piece. And I kid you not when I say this, I have been waiting for this patiently. Villeneuve is back directing, and he's co-writing with Brian K. Vaughan, which is already a strong combo. Most of the main cast came back, which is a huge relief, because imagine getting this far and suddenly half the characters are gone. Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Florence Pugh, with Jason Momoa reprising his role as Idaho, are confirmed to return from the previous film and are joined by Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, Charlotte Rampling, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Isaac DeBancourt joining as Farrokh, and Robert Pattinson, who are all part of the ensemble, with Pattinson playing the villain, Scytale. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I'm curious about that one too. Now, here's where things get more interesting, because this is no longer the rumor territory anymore. Release date is locked too, which is December 18, 2026. But the only slightly funny part in all of this is the release date drama. There's talk that Dune Part 3 might move just to avoid clashing with Marvel's next big event. Either way, it's kind of crazy how Dune, once called too strange, too bleak, too political for a blockbuster, went on to become one of the strongest sci-fi film series out there right now. And with Messiah, the story finally asks the uncomfortable questions, and I'm really curious to see how far Villeneuve takes it.
Now, you are on your own.
The Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping, 2026. At first glance, it looks like another Hunger Games movie. And you might think, we know the drill, kids in an arena, survival, we've seen this before. But nah, Suzanne Collins was never writing simple arena stories, and Sunrise on the Reaping makes that clear pretty fast. We're not following Katniss this time. We're going way back to the 50th Hunger Games, The year Haymitch Abernathy survives that mess and walks out alive. And that's enough to get me interested, because the Haymitch we know, played by Woody Harrelson, is already worn out, sarcastic, and very clearly done with everything. That version comes after the Capitol has already done its damage. So what was he like before all that? Was he hopeful, a little cocky, or was there always something off, even back then? You see the appeal, right? Timeline-wise, we are about 24 years before Katniss enters the arena. That gives the story a lot of room to breathe and show how the games became the huge spectacle we see in the later movies. And this is not a normal year either, because for this quarterquell, each district has to send double the tributes, which means more kids, more loss, more suffering turned into entertainment, and way more room for things to go very wrong. So, even before the games begin, the system already makes things worse. You can almost hear the Capitol watching this unfold and think this is going to be great TV. And that's the point, right? Propaganda, control, state violence, and a society that turns children into disposable televised collateral. This is dystopian sci-fi doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Francis Lawrence coming back as director is actually reassuring. He knows how to make Panem feel big, but also dreadful. He knows this world well, the politics, and more importantly, he understands how to show the cruelty of the Capitol without losing the emotional side of the story. Billy Ray handles the screenplay, so you could say that the story is in experienced hands. And the cast? It's long. And that's all I can say. Joseph Zada plays young Haymitch, Whitney Peake plays Lenore Dove Baird, and McKenna Grace takes on Maisie Donner. Then we have Jesse Plemons as a younger Plutarch Heavensby, Elle Fanning as Effie Trinket, Kieran Culkin as Caesar Flickerman, Ray Fiennes as President Snow, with Glenn Close also joining in. As for updates, things are moving. Lionsgate already dropped a teaser, so this is very much real. The film wrapped production in late November 2025, which means it is deep into post-production now. The release date is locked for November 20, 2026, and it's getting an IMAX release too. So yeah, they're going all the way. However, a late 2025 report suggests Jennifer Lawrence and John Hutcherson might return as Katniss and Peeta. Even the hint of that is enough to get fans paying attention again. But for me, the main pull is Haymitch. His past always sounded rough, but this time, it seems there's no stepping back, and we go straight into it. So yeah, color me intrigued. Because if we know Hunger Games, it has all the pieces to get very brutal, very fast. And I kinda wanna see how far it goes this time. Starship Troopers Remake. Now, this is a remake I can actually get behind. When we talk about Starship Troopers, on one side, we have Robert A. Heinlein's 1959 novel, which is pretty straightforward and reads like a military sci-fi story. Then, on the other hand, we have Paul Verhoeven's 1997 film, which took that same idea and went ballistic. And when I say that, I mean Verhoeven's made it meaner, stranger, and a lot more sarcastic. The movie definitely has its fan base, but at the same time, it didn't exactly kill it at the box office, and even lost money, which is crazy when you think about how popular it became later. So, the second Sony announced they are doing a new version with Neil Blomkamp writing and directing, and when I hear Blomkamp and military sci-fi in the same sentence, my brain perks up like a caffeinated squirrel. Humans fighting a massive war against alien bugs, the premise still rules. Simple, clean, easy to picture on a big screen. But the real strength of Starship Troopers was never only the big bugs or the action, it was always the system behind it. The idea that you earned citizenship through service, and the way military culture shapes the entire society. That is where things get interesting, and depending on how you approach it, this can go in totally different directions. It can turn into a sharp satire, or it can become this huge space war movie with armor, explosions, bugs everywhere, and political subtext simmering beneath. This is why Blomkamp feels like such an interesting pick. His works like District 9 and Chappie are usually right in that zone, and the man knows how to build worlds that feel rough, lived in, and believable. And, most importantly, nobody gets to leave clean. So, which version of Starship Troopers are we actually getting here? And that is a very important question. Is this a proper adaptation of the book, a modern remix, or a movie that tries to balance both and ends up starting arguments all over Reddit? because you already know sci-fi fans are always ready. However, all speculation was put to rest when the last big update confirmed Blue Camp was attached to write and direct, and this version is expected to follow Heinlein's novel more closely instead of remaking the 1997 film. And that changes the entire conversation, because look, like everybody else, I too have a soft spot for the 1997 film. That movie is gloriously nasty, and weird in a way big studio sci-fi rarely is. But at the same time, I do think there's room for a new take that explores more into the book and sees that side properly, especially with someone like Blomkamp handling it. Now, as of this moment, Sony has not revealed the cast, and there's no release date yet, so this one still feels early, which is frustrating, but the project itself is very real. Of course, the risk here is painfully obvious. If you adapt the beloved book more directly, the movie crowd starts grumbling. If you stay too close to the older film, people will start asking why this even needed to be remade. So yeah, Blomkamp is in a tight spot. Only a franchise with decades of debate behind it and fans ready to argue about every decision and throw chairs, and possibly hands. And that is exactly why I cannot look away. Because if he brings that same style here, the remake could actually turn into something special. 1 second after. 1 second after feels a little too real for comfort. It takes a very simple idea and then refuses to let you breathe for even a second. The story comes from William R. Forshen's 1 second after, and the story is pretty straightforward. An electromagnetic pulse, EMP, hits and wipes out modern technology. Every electronic device dies. Cars stop working, phones go silent, and planes literally fall out of the sky. And suddenly, the modern world just shuts down. Yikes. The story follows John Matherson, who is a history professor and also a military veteran, so at least he's not walking into this blind. He tries to keep his small town in North Carolina alive while everything people depend on vanishes overnight. There is no food supply, no medicine, no communication. You are on your own, and whatever you have in your house suddenly decides your future. What I like here is that the story stays grounded. There's no snazzy tech, no space battles, nothing like that. It zooms in on a small community that has to relearn survival from scratch. Hospitals run out of supplies, people walk miles just to find water, and families start protecting each other with whatever they can get their hands on. And that is the part that hits a little too close to home, because you can actually imagine it happening. But here's something that makes everything more unsettling. The novel is built on real research, the way an EMP works, how systems fail step by step, and how society starts to break down. It's all based on actual studies, so when things fall apart, it isn't an exaggeration, but a possibility, which makes it all the more worse. If the film gets this right, it could really work, because it doesn't need big scenes, because here, the fear comes from how normal everything feels right before it all goes dark. Scott Rogers is directing, with J. Michael Straczynski and Nicole Rowe writing the script, which already tells me they want a grounded, character-first approach. Then we have Josh Holloway as John Matherson, and he plays a worn-down but capable type very well, which is exactly what this story needs, where survival depends on who can keep it together. Hannah John Kamen, Famke Janssen, Mary McDonnell, Stephen Ogg, and Johanna Diaz-Watson are all part of it. As for updates, the film has already been shot in Bulgaria and stayed active in promo cycles into early 2026. Holloway even teased the project in January, so this isn't stuck in development. But, still no release date in sight. Hyperion. This has been Bradley Cooper's passion project since the 2010s, and I respect the stubbornness. Dan Simmons wrote these 4 books across the 80s and 90s, and Cooper clearly believes they deserve a much bigger audience. After Dune proved that Dan's intimidating sci-fi can actually work with mainstream audiences, Hyperion has finally moved from the sci-fi television series to a Warner Brothers feature film, which is a pretty huge update, and I get the hype. Dan Simmons' novel is massive, layered, structurally odd, and packed with ideas that don't neatly fit into a simple movie pitch. It makes you feel smart and confused at the same time. The story begins with 7 pilgrims on a trip to Hyperion, a distant planet, and its mysterious time tombs, where a terrifying enemy awaits for them. Nobody really knows what's about to happen, which is never a great sign for group travel. So Hyperion itself sounds like a lot. Strange ecosystems, unknown populations, exiles, poets, and then we have these dangerous, possibly engineered features all over the place. This planet is on the edge of a massive interstellar system run by the hegemony, which connects worlds through Farcaster portals. And those portals come from the core, a highly evolved AI power humanity depends on, without fully understanding it. And in sci-fi, that's always a red flag. Then we have the Shrike, and this thing alone could sell the movie if they get it right. It's this huge metallic monster on Hyperion that guards the time tombs, ancient structures of stone and jewels that somehow move backward through time along with the Shrike itself. And because plain weirdness was apparently not enough, we also have the Ousters, who are humans that split off long ago, went deep into space, and evolved into something very different. Now they want Hyperion too, because of course the most dangerous place in the galaxy has to become a target at the worst possible moment. The 7 pilgrims were not picked by chance, but all connected to Hyperion and the Shrike in some way, as each one carries a personal story and motive. The whole thing reminds me of the Canterbury Tales, which is probably why the studio people have stared at it for years. Like, how do we even begin? And that's been the problem for years. Cooper has been pushing this since the early 2010s, while Graham King is also on board as a producer. Originally, it was supposed to be a TV series, which does sound like the easier format for a story this large, but I also get why they want to go big screen. Hyperion does sound like the kind of story that needs scale, and a theater screen gives you that in a way TV sometimes can't. Then there is the casting question, and that's a big one. These characters are not simple, so we need actors with presence and a bit of mystery. Cooper might cast himself, which wouldn't be surprising. He did it with A Star is Born, which did really well, and then again with Maestro, where he played Leonard Bernstein, so the guy clearly likes to keep a lot on his own plate. Now, the latest update is, there is not much movement. There is still no confirmed cast, no director, and no official release date. Most recent reports still say it's active at Warner Brothers, but it's also like they're still trying to figure out what this would even look like as a movie. So you can call this easily the most uncertain project on the list, but strangely, it kind of fits Hyperion's reputation. This is the type of novel that should make studios nervous. If they ever do crack it, it could be something huge, and if it falls apart, nobody's gonna be surprised. But hey, I'm still rooting for it. Rendezvous with Rama, 2027. If Hyperion makes you ask how do you bring this on screen, Rama challenges you to try to film a mystery without messing it up, which certainly sounds like a task. Arthur C. Clarke's novel is based on a deceptively simple idea. Humans spot a massive cylindrical alien object entering the solar system. They head out to investigate, they get inside, and try to figure out what it is and why it's here. Pretty simple, right? But the actual story is not what it seems, because what makes Rama work is an action or big plot twist you did not see coming. It's the scale, the silence, the curiosity, and that uneasy feeling that humanity just brushed up against something huge and intelligent and got no answers. It falls into the category of awe and discomfort at the same time, which is exactly why I like it. But that also makes it very tricky to translate to film. So let me walk you through this because it goes back a while. In the early 2010s, Morgan Freeman decided he wanted to bring this story to life, and not as an actor first, but as a producer. And when Morgan Freeman is so sure about something, who am I to question? So the plan was to move forward through his company, Revelations Entertainment, and around 2003, it actually looked like things might come together after some early funding issues. But then, it stalls. David Fincher was considered to direct as early as 2001, which, to be honest, sounds incredible. He even confirmed in 2007 that he still planned to direct. So, at that point, it was really happening. 2008 comes, and Fincher kinda admits it might not happen, and Morgan Freeman wasn't in the best health at the time. Oh, my poor heart. The project was set to quietly disappear, but this one didn't, and kept crawling forward. By 2010, Freeman still wanted to make it, and even talked about doing it in 3D, which makes a lot of sense. Then in 2011, Fincher again says he is still interested, but once again, same problem, which was the script. In 2012, Freeman talks to Neil deGrasse Tyson and says he would love to play Commander Norton. That's his dream, to command a starship like Endeavor. Tyson even pushes him on it like, is this a pitch? And Freeman says, yeah, we're making this. But Freeman soon points out the real issue. Money is tough, sure, but a great script? That was the real challenge. And clearly that has been the wall this project keeps running into. Now, December 2021, the project finds new life. it moves to Alcan Entertainment, and Denis Villeneuve comes in as director. A great pick. Because if there's one person right now who knows how to handle thoughtful sci-fi, it's him. He's also confirmed to be working on the screenplay, and said Rama is moving forward, even while handling Dune Messiah and Cleopatra. When you look at Villeneuve's past work, it almost feels like he's been building towards something like this. Arrival handled First Contact in a very restrained way. With Blade Runner 2049, he nailed the atmosphere and scale. Dune showed he can take dense material and still keep it cinematic without losing the mystery. So, if someone can pull this off, it's probably him. Freeman and Laurie McCreary stay on board as producers through Revelations Entertainment, which feels right, because they've been carrying this for years. Alcan's Broderick Johnson and Andrew Kosov join in as producers too, and as of early 2024, Villeneuve is actively working on the script. As for updates, there's no official release date yet, and no confirmed cast either. Some reports have suggested it would be a 2027 release, but that's more of an educated guess than anything locked in. But even with all that uncertainty, this is one of the most tempting projects on the list for me, because a film like Rama walks a very thin line. It can end up as something beautiful and thoughtful, or it could feel slow and empty if it misses the tone by even a little. That gap between great and boring is very real with this one. These movies feel exciting for the exact same reason their books work, and the sole reason is that none of them play it safe. And I love that. Give me big ideas, the messy systems, the alien mysteries that don't explain themselves. Give me future scenarios that feel a little too real for comfort, because that's where sci-fi gets interesting. And these 6 movies are yet to hit theaters. And while these movies are yet to hit theaters, please check out all of them. But now it all comes down to one thing. How many of these could actually work? Because, let's be real, all 6 landing perfectly, that's rare. But if even half of them get it right, we're looking at a very good run for sci-fi. But all we can do for now is keep our fingers crossed and pray silently to the gods of sci-fi. And, as always, don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel for more such content. And we'll see you next time. Have a good one.